Your company's data, your digital life, both held hostage by cloud giants. Welcome to Patent Wars, where we analyze the economics of tech warfare. Today, we are exposing the $61 billion legal trap that makes it economically impossible for you to ever leave the cloud. This is the new digital reality, and I have the receipts to prove it. We're looking at how Broadcom and the big three cloud providers turned your infrastructure into a digital Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but your data never leaves. Here's what nobody else will tell you about the cloud. It was sold as a utility, like water or electricity, but it has evolved into a high-stakes ransom game. Moving your own files now costs a literal fortune. Period. You were promised flexibility and cost savings when you migrated away from on-premise servers. But now, your CFO is looking at a bill that grows every month. There is no easy way to stop the bleeding. It is a trap. The data reveals a staggering truth about modern enterprise IT. Moving 1 petabyte of data out of a major cloud provider can cost up to $80,000 in egress fees alone. This effectively locks your business in place, forever. This isn't just a technical hurdle, it's a calculated economic barrier designed to stifle competition. When the cost of leaving is higher than the cost of staying, you no longer have a choice. You have a master. Think about that. But here's where it gets interesting. While AWS and Azure were building these walls, a new player entered the game to tighten the screws even further. Broadcom's acquisition of VMware changed the rules of the game. It changed everything. Here's the mechanism they don't want you to see. By combining software virtualization with cloud egress fees, they've created a pincer movement. This traps your data and your budget in a cycle of perpetual price increases. It is inevitable. Remember this $61 billion figure. It becomes important later when we look at the total cost of these hidden fees across the global economy. For now, we need to understand how the trap was set. Pay attention. You might think your data is safe because it's in the cloud, but safety comes at a price. Every time you want to use your own information outside of their ecosystem, you are hit with a digital toll. Check. Let me show you the hidden mechanism of the egress fee. It costs almost nothing for a provider to move data within their network, yet they charge you a premium of up to 1,000% over cost. Gone. Stay with me because we are about to expose the specific legal and economic tactics used to keep you from switching providers. This is the story of how the open internet became a series of walled gardens. Chaos follows. The official story is that these fees cover infrastructure costs. The real story is that they are a strategic weapon used to prevent multi-cloud strategies. They keep your business dependent on a single, expensive vendor. Not theory, mathematics. Now you see the full picture of the initial trap. We've established the scale of the problem and the players involved. Now we must look at the catalyst that turned a problem into a full-blown crisis. Let's dive in. In late 2023, Broadcom finalized its $69 billion acquisition of VMware. This wasn't just another merger, it was a hostile takeover of the foundation of modern enterprise computing. Your private data centers were the target, it collapsed. Here's what they hide behind the corporate press releases. Broadcom immediately began killing off perpetual licenses, forcing you into a subscription model. This can cost 10 times more than what you were previously paying. Not a flaw. Design. Let me show you the first piece of evidence regarding this shift. According to reports from Forrester Research, VMware customers are facing price hikes of up to 500%. There is no viable alternative to migrate to. Period. You are likely feeling the pressure if your company relies on VMware for virtualization. You want to leave. You want to move to the public cloud, but that is where the second trap snaps shut. It is over. You were right to be concerned when you saw the news of the acquisition. Broadcom has a history of buying mature software companies and raising prices. They maximize short-term profits at your long-term expense. Sound familiar? It should. This is not a bug in their business model. This is the feature. They target stuck customers who have built their entire infrastructure on VMware. They know that the cost of migrating away is prohibitively expensive. They lost. The data reveals that Broadcom is focusing on the top 2,000 global customers. They are effectively telling everyone else that they are no longer a priority. Simultaneously, they are raising the barrier to exit. It is calculated. Think about your own IT budget for a moment. If your licensing costs suddenly tripled, where would that money come from? It's a zero-sum game where Broadcom's record profits are directly extracted from your company's innovation fund. Drains. We'll come back to why this matters for the broader economy in a moment. But first, we have to look at the technical wall that makes escaping VMware a financial suicide mission. Your future depends on understanding this. Here's the twist that most analysts missed. To move away from VMware, you need to move your data. But if that data is already sitting in a hybrid cloud environment, the egress fees make the transition impossible. Traps. It is a digital pincer movement. On one side, Broadcom is raising the price of the software you use to manage your data. On the other side, cloud providers are charging you a fortune to move it. Crushed. Let me show you who profits from this chaos. It's not the engineers or the innovators, it's the shareholders of the cloud giants. They see egress fees as a high-margin, low-effort revenue stream. It requires zero value. You are paying for the privilege of being locked in. Every gigabyte of data you generate adds another brick to the wall. It keeps you from finding a better deal or a more efficient way of doing business. Sound familiar? It should. This is the same playbook used by legacy telcos and cable companies, but it is applied to the very lifeblood of the modern economy, your proprietary business data and customer information. Same pattern. That completes the first piece of the puzzle regarding the Broadcom pincer. Now that we understand the software side of the trap, we must dive deep into the $61 billion egress fee crisis itself. Stay focused. Now here's where most people get this wrong. They think egress fees are just a small part of the bill, but for a large enterprise, they can account for up to 30% of the total cloud spend. Shocking. Let me show you the evidence from a recent study by the Cloud Industry Forum. They found that $61 billion is being spent globally on these movement fees. This money provides zero functional value. None. The documents show that cloud providers often waive ingress fees, the cost to put data in. They make it free to enter the trap, but the moment you try to take it back, the price skyrockets. Deception. This is not a bug, this is the design. It's the classic drug pusher model. The first hit is free. Once you're hooked and your entire business depends on the service, they start charging for the exit. Period. Here's what they're not telling you about data gravity. The more data you store with one provider, the harder it becomes to move. This is because the egress fees grow linearly with the size of your database. Devoured. You might have petabytes of historical records or customer logs. Moving that to a competitor to take advantage of better AI tools could cost your company millions of dollars in upfront fees. It is a ransom. You knew something was wrong when your cloud bill started looking like a phone book. The complexity of these billing statements is another layer of the trap. It is designed to hide the true cost. You're paying. Stay with me because the next part changes everything. We are going to look at how these fees are being used as a weapon in antitrust battles. We will see why the European Union is finally stepping in. Here's the critical part of the mechanism. Cloud providers use egress fees to discourage multi-cloud strategies. If it costs too much to move data between AWS and Azure, you'll just stick with one, even if it's worse. Remember when I mentioned the $61 billion figure? That is the estimated annual tax on innovation caused by these fees. It's money that could be spent on new products. Instead, it's padding corporate margins, drains. This isn't just theory, it's mathematics. If a competitor offers compute for 20% less, but the cost to move your data equals 3 years of savings, you are effectively trapped. The math doesn't lie. Check. Here's the mechanism they don't want you to see. Some providers offer private links that bypass the public internet, but even these come with hidden data transfer costs that keep your budget tethered to their hardware. Always, you are part of this system whether you like it or not. Every time you use a SaaS application, there is a high probability that an egress fee is being paid in the background. You're paying for it. The data reveals that egress fees are the single biggest barrier to cloud migration. It's a digital wall that is invisible to the user, but it represents a massive financial hurdle for your infrastructure architects. Traps. In theory, the cloud was supposed to democratize access to computing power. In practice, it has created a new class of digital landlords. They charge you for the right to walk out the front door. Reality. This validates your suspicion that the pay-as-you-go model was too good to be true. It's actually pay to stay. The price of staying is going up every single year as your data footprint expands. It is inevitable. Cloud executives protect their margins by implementing these complex fee structures. Meanwhile, regular IT managers like you have to explain to the board why the migration project is $2 million over budget. Same playbook. Play us. This is the economics of tech warfare. It's not about who has the best code. It's about who has the best legal and financial traps to ensure customer retention without providing a better service. Not theory. Policy. Here's what nobody else will tell you. Some companies are actually going back to on-premise servers, a process called cloud repatriation. They do this just to escape the unpredictable and predatory nature of these recurring fees. Gone. Now you see the full picture of the egress fee mechanism. We've seen how the trap is built and how it's being exploited. Now we must look at the escalation of this crisis in today's market. What I'm about to show you is how the Broadcom-VMware deal acted as a catalyst. It turned these existing cloud fees into a weapon of mass economic destruction for mid-sized and large enterprises alike. It exploded. Let me show you the second piece of evidence. Internal memos from major tech consultants suggest that the VMware exit is the #1 priority for CIOs in 2024. But only 10% can afford it. The data reveals a terrifying reality. For a company with 10 petabytes of data, the cost to move out of a legacy setup could exceed $1 million in egress fees. This is before migration starts. Crushed. This is not a bug. This is the design. Broadcom knew exactly what they were doing when they bought VMware. They bought a customer base that is literally too expensive to move. This gives them power. Here's the mechanism they don't want you to see. By forcing customers into bundles, Broadcom makes it impossible to drop just one part of the service. You either pay for everything or you lose everything. Period. You are paying for features you don't need, just to keep the ones you do. It's a classic cable package strategy applied to mission-critical software. It runs your entire business operations and customer databases. Your part, you are right to be concerned about the consolidation of the tech industry. When a few companies own the pipes and the software, the consumer, which is you, always ends up paying the price. Sound familiar? It should. Here's why this matters today. The $61 billion crisis is reaching a breaking point. Companies realize they are spending more on moving data than they are on using data to generate revenue. It is chaos. Let me show you who loses in this scenario. It's the startups and the innovators who can't afford the exit tax to move to a specialized provider. This effectively kills competition before it can start. Gone. This isn't prophecy. This is mathematics. If your data grows at 30% a year and egress fees stay the same, your lock-in cost is doubling every 3 years. You are becoming less free. Mathematics. Here's the twist. Some cloud providers are now offering egress waivers for customers who are leaving to go back to on-premise, but only if they sign a multi-year agreement to keep some services active. Traps. It's a desperate attempt to keep the hooks in. They would rather give you a one-time discount on your way out than lose the ability to charge you for your digital existence. They are afraid. The data reveals that the Hotel California model is starting to backfire. As the costs become transparent, more companies are choosing to avoid the cloud entirely for their most data-intensive workloads. They are escaping. Over. You have to ask yourself, is the convenience of the cloud worth the loss of your economic sovereignty? Because once your data is in, the price to get it out is no longer in your control. Now you understand the escalation of the crisis. We've seen how the pincer is tightening. Now we must look at the climax of this battle, the legal and regulatory war that is currently unfolding. Climax. Now we reach the climax of the $61 billion war. Regulators in the UK and the EU have finally realized that egress fees are not a technical necessity. They are an anti-competitive barrier. Revealed. Here's what nobody else will tell you about the EU Data Act. It specifically mandates that cloud providers must eventually eliminate egress fees entirely. This allows for a fair and open digital market for all. Discovery. But here's the catch. The cloud giants are fighting back with technical complexity arguments. They claim that removing these fees will compromise security or increase the base price. This is a classic diversion. Not true. Let me show you the pattern of their defense. They use the same arguments that Microsoft used in the 90s to justify tying Internet Explorer to Windows. It's about integration, they say. It's control. Revealed. What makes this dangerous today is how Broadcom is using the regulatory delay to lock in 5-year contracts at their new prices. Right now, the same mechanism of forced migration is happening globally. It's happening. You are right to suspect that the law is always 10 years behind the technology. By the time the EU Data Act is fully enforced, your company might have already paid tens of millions in fees. Drains. This is the climax of the struggle for data portability. If you can't move your data, you don't own it. You are merely renting it from a provider who can raise the rent whenever. Think about it. The data reveals that AWS and Google have recently announced they will waive egress fees for customers who want to leave. But the fine print makes it nearly impossible to execute. It is a trick. You have to close your entire account and delete all your data within 60 days to get the waiver. It's an all or nothing proposition designed to be risky. Most companies will never try. Traps. Here's the mechanism they don't want you to see. They are making the free exit so painful and final that it actually reinforces the lock-in. It's a brilliant, if cynical, piece of legal engineering. Deception. The cloud promised a world of infinite scale and zero friction. The outcome is a $61 billion wall that prevents you from moving your own digital assets to where they are valuable. Reality. This isn't just a tech problem. This is a fundamental shift in the economics of ownership. In the digital age, the one who controls the exit controls the asset. Right now, you don't control it. Before I give you the 3 takeaways that could save your company millions, we need to look at the final piece of evidence regarding Broadcom's long-term strategy for your data. Stay with me. Let me show you the 3rd piece of evidence. Broadcom's recent financial filings show a massive shift toward recurring revenue. This is just a polite way of saying they've successfully trapped their customers. Subscription loop. Now you see the full picture of the war. The lines are drawn, the traps are set, and the regulators are finally waking up. Now we must look at the resolution and what this means. Resolution. So where does this leave us? The $61 billion crisis isn't going away, but the awareness of the trap is finally reaching the boardroom. Companies are starting to fight back with new strategies. Action. Here's what the most successful companies are doing. They are adopting cloud-agnostic architectures from day one. They use open source tools that can run anywhere, making the cost of migration significantly lower. This is smart.